Niger's military rulers who seized power last week have accused France of planning an attack on the presidential palace to free deposed President Mohamed Bazoum. France has condemned the coup but has not announced any intention to intervene militarily. The coup in Niger follows military takeovers in neighbouring Mali and Burkina Faso in the past 2 years. They've been accompanied by a wave of anger against the former colonial power and a shift towards Russia.
Pour intervenir militairement au Niger.
To intervene militarily in Niger, France, with the complicity of certain Nigerians, held a meeting at the headquarters of the National Guard of Niger to obtain the necessary political and military authorizations for an attack.
Well, that statement came after Chad's president met the coup leaders to negotiate a peaceful end to the political crisis. The West African regional bloc ECOWAS is demanding the junta reinstate the deposed president in 1 week or face the prospect of military action. The coup leaders have in turn warned ECOWAS against any military intervention. Bernard Smith is standing by for us in Paris. First, let's go to Ahmed Idris. He's live for us in Abuja. So what details are coming to light, Ahmed, about the allegations of a French plan to intervene militarily?
Exactly. The accusation came from the military authorities, a spokesman, the main spokesman of the junta in Niamey. He alleged that there was a meeting at the Guards Brigade involving former ministers and, of course, some elements within the army authorizing the French to take action so as to attack the presidential palace and also target certain military officers in the country. But that's the body language, that's the action, that has been seen in the action and utterances of the coup since day one. That has whipped up already existing sentiments, anti-French sentiments in Niger. And this one boiled over yesterday on Sunday when we saw thousands of people out on the streets demonstrating against France, asking for Russia to come in, and also some of them even broke away from the larger crowd and attacked the French embassy in Niamey. Sami?
And Ahmed, what can you tell us about reports of ministers being arrested in a crackdown?
Well, there are reports of dozens of arrests so far, but 8 prominent members of the Bazoum government or cabinet or people aligned to him have been arrested. Among them, the most prominent among them, the Minister of Petroleum Resources, and surprise, surprise, son of former President Mohamed Issoufou, who is the Minister of Petroleum in that country. Remember, Mohamed Issoufou appointed the current military leader to head the Presidential Guard himself and also recommended him to the deposed President Mohamed Bazoum to retain him as Presidential Guard commander. Apart from him, there are also ministers of mines, transportation, planning, as well as the Minister of Interior, who was earlier on arrested along with President Mohamed Bazoum and some top aides in that cabinet. Also under arrest, of course, arrested today, is the president of the governing party, the PNDS Taraya, as well as a former minister who is currently a member of parliament in the last dispensation before the coup.
Ahmed, we've still got more to talk to you about, so stay with us for a second. But I know we've shifted gears a little bit, but let's come back to the issue of those allegations of a French military intervention plan. And clearly, the European and France starting to show they want to take action. They say they're going to cut off financial aid to Niger. The United States also threatening to withdraw funding if deposed President Mohamed Bazoum is not reinstated. Nearly 3.6 million people in Niger are at risk of hunger. More than 1 million children are facing malnutrition. The nation receives close to $2 billion a year in official development assistance. The UN says it's one of the least developed countries in the world. Last year, the EU and France gave nearly $300 million in aid. The money supports programs in emergency food assistance and health.
It's going to be disastrous for the people because Niger is a country that relies heavily on its partnership with the international community that provide much support, especially when it comes to the second financial year. We secure a budget for this time with financial aid from the European Union, the World Bank and the IMF, in particular, along with the French Development Agency. Turning one's back on this aid is suicide.
Al Jazeera's Bernard Smith is live for us in Paris. So French officials have spoken about aid, but are they saying anything about these allegations of military intervention, Bernard?
Sammy, the French Foreign Ministry has said that it has no other objective than the security of its citizens in Niger. It says our priority is the safety of our nationals and our property, which cannot be the object of violence. The French government has said that its embassy came under sustained and violent attack. It says from people who were clearly prepared, and the security forces in Niger weren't able to contain them. And it says that it didn't use any lethal force in protecting its embassy, despite claims to the contrary from some senior members of the Nigerian military forces. The European Union is also saying that it will hold responsible all attacks on civilians. It will hold Niger responsible for all attacks on civilians, diplomatic personnel and embassies. There is a lot of anti-French sentiment in its former West African colonies, and they've now become a bit of a diplomatic ground battleground, really. On one side, you've got the French, the Europeans, and on the other side, you've got the Russians and the Chinese, all vying now for influence in this part of West Africa. And you can see that's one of the reasons why the Europeans, particularly the French, are so interested and concerned about what's happening there at the moment. Sammy.
Thanks so much, Bernard Smith. Let's go back to Ahmed Idris. He has been monitoring, as you said, everything that's happening from Abuja. And Ahmed, you know, Bernard was talking about the diplomatic tensions there. Where is the proposal from the president of Chad going? Is it getting any traction to try and resolve this peacefully?
We understand that President Idris Deby has left Niger already after a meeting. Nigerian leader, President Bola Tinubu, along with other West African leaders in Abuja, ahead of the summit on Sunday. He took the demands of ECOWAS and, of course, a proposal to the military rulers in Niger. And he was able to meet with the military high command, including, of course, the military ruler, the self-appointed leader of Niger now. He met also President Mohamed Bazoum, former President Mohamed Issoufou, and some senior officials of the government there. They didn't say exactly what was inside the proposal and whether or not the authorities in Niger have accepted them. But we understand that he spent hours discussing this with all parties concerned, and he has left Niger at the moment. He is due to brief, and probably by now, as we talk or as we speak, he must be briefing the president of Nigeria, who is the current chairman of the Economic Community of West African States. Now, failure to adhere to the demands of ECOWAS, we understand that the ECOWAS heads of state and government have ordered military to be on standby for possible intervention in Niger. The military high commands in all the countries that are going to participate have met and are continuing to discuss the modalities of that in case the leaders authorize the use of force there. However, there are signs that things may be thawing a little bit in Niger at the moment. There are rumors, but they're not confirmed, that possibly in the next few days, probably by weekend, we may see the lifting of sanctions, the lifting of closure of borders. But that is not confirmed yet. That's what we're hearing for the moment, but it's not official.
All right, thanks so much, Ahmed Idris. Well, Christopher Famuñoz from the National Democratic Institute for International Affairs. He's the Regional Director for Central and West Africa Programs at the American NGO. Joins us now live from Washington, D.C. Good to have you with us. So first of all, let's start with these suggestions or allegations of a French military operation. How likely is that?
Well, thanks, Sami, for having me. If this were not a serious question, I would just laugh it away, because no country that's credible, that's experienced, would go hold a meeting in the capital city of its country being controlled by a junta to discuss how to take military action. So I would just, it's true that the French have become the straw man in the Sahel, but I wouldn't put a lot of stock on the alleged meeting.
We also know that sanctions are mounting up on Niger. The EU, France, possibly it's been suggested the US will be next. How is that going to impact the economic situation of the country?
These sanctions are for real. And the Nigerian Prime Minister yesterday underscored the fact that Niger is a country that depends tremendously on foreign assistance and will not be able to find its pathway without such assistance. I think the sanctions from ECOWAS are real, they're strong, they're firm. ECOWAS has demonstrated its desire to draw the line in the sand with regards to the junta in Niger. And I think that the other sanctions that are likely to come from the African Union, the global system, and developing partners will really have a negative impact on the population of Niger. And I think that's really the wake-up call for the current junta to say that if they really have the intentions and the interests of their people at heart, then they're going to have to pull back from this foolishness and from dragging the 27 million people of Niger into a situation of collective suicide.
And also, if we can talk a little bit about what that means when we're seeing a lot of strain in relations between the former colonial power, between Western countries and Niger's current rulers. Does that give an opening for Russia?
Well, some people would immediately see the fact that a few Russian flags were waved at the pro-junta demonstration yesterday as a sign that that may provide an opening for Russia. But I would hasten to add that even this morning, we had the Kremlin saying they would want to see a return to legality in Niger. And secondly, that there are nuances with what's happening, not just in Niger, but across most of Francophone Africa. That's certainly an anti-French sentiment, especially among young Africans, and sometimes justifiably so. But that does not immediately translate into a full-scale embrace of Russia. And I think that nuance doesn't have to be lost.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.